Cool. So thanks so much for coming here from all over the world. Welcome to this event where we're going to be discussing how B2B startups are driving serious business with creative campaigns. Today, my special guest, Diana Caplinska. And I have to admit another person from the waiting room. So Diana and we met because I think I thought her last name was Polish, so I reached out and was like, "Hey, are you Polish?" And she was like, "No," and I'm like, "Okay, we can still be friends anyway." And then I discovered that Diana is a super awesome brand coach for CMOs at startups, and she's helping them understand the value of brand campaigns, creative brand campaigns. She helps them to create them and track the impact of these campaigns. And she is, sorry, could you please all mute yourselves? We have some background noise. Thank you very much. And she delivers hands-on brand strategies and creative campaigns to startups across all over the world. And they are ranging from pre-seed to Series B startups. And her newsletter, B2B, that made me feel things, great name, by the way, showcases brand campaigns and the marketing science behind it. So why exactly this works. And it already has more than 1,000 subscribers. I don't know how you did that, Diana, in such a short time, but kudos. So go ahead and please sign up for her newsletter. And Diana, could you please drop the link to the newsletter?
Yeah, I will do. There we go.
I'll give you a moment. Oh yeah, there you go. Cool. All right. So let's dive right in. So why are we here, actually? Why are we here? Well, the problem is that, the biggest misconception about brand marketing at scrappy startups is that it costs so much and it just, it doesn't deliver results right away because we need results right away. And it's only for the, excuse me, somebody's very loud here. Okay. We're all muted. So so these startups, they think, okay, it's not for us. It's for bigger brands. It's all Hollywood productions that take a lot of time and money, and we have to wait like years to see the results. And so that brings me to my first question to you, Diana. What do you say then? Like, how do you alleviate this objection? And what are the differences between brand campaigns for scrappy startups versus those big Hollywood production campaigns?
Yeah, it's the Hollywood production. That's where we land straight away when people think about brand campaigns. Very good question. So in short, a lot of the companies I work with, they are from usually seed Series A. I think that's my sweet spot. I do go smaller and bigger. And most of them do come with this preconception that brand is something you do after you've fixed up your business. And they don't come to me necessarily asking for a brand campaign. They come to me because they're sending cold outreach and nobody's responding. They're coming to me because they realize that if they're in SaaS, they used to think the product was their differentiator, but if they're gonna, keep building, especially in this economic environment, and their competition is building the same thing, they're maybe a quarter ahead at max compared to their competition when it comes to product, and that's not necessarily going to work if the sales cycle is way longer than 1 quarter. They come to me because they've done performance marketing and now they don't have the budget to do this anymore. They come to me because there's always a webinar and there's always a demand to put out more content, but it's just not adding up significant sort of movement and performance. So actually, I feel like every B2B marketer that you're going to speak to is going to tell you it's a grind, it's a slog. Why the hell is it so hard? I think maybe most people on this call can relate to that too. And my answer to that is because a lot of them in these specific activities are fighting an impossible battle. I'll explain. We know that out of 100% of people in the market, only about 5% of companies are actually ready and willing to buy right now. We're also in a very strange and weird economic situation, not that we haven't been for the last 5 years, but it's still pretty bad now. So rumor has it that it's not even 5, it's 3, it could be 1, which means that in every company, people will be fighting, every company within your industry, people are fighting for the same, let's say 1% of the market. And who's going to win? The ones that are the biggest companies, because they have cold calling people, they will have more money for the ads, they will have more human power to write those SEO articles that get you up the rankings. So the bigger company will always win, just few the larger share of resources. So what is there to do for a smaller company? And I do count startups and even scale-ups as smaller companies, because they're going against Google's, Oracle's, Adobe's, etc. Any of the bigger company can add a feature to their tech stack and essentially offer an adjacent, if not quite the same solution. So what's a smaller company to do? And the answer is creativity. That's the only thing that is scalable and that really sort of flips the script. So the reason why you need to think about brand, even as a small company, is because really you're going to keep banging your head on the wall, doing the other parts of the funnel and failing at it, losing to the bigger competition. So it's not about, it's optional. It's literally the only way you get out of this.
Diana, sorry, I think you're muted by accident.
Have I been muted this whole time?
No, just for a second.
Oh my God, I was so passionate. The hands were
we heard the passion.
I was like, I hope you guys enjoyed that audiovisual mime show.
Yeah.
All right. That's so funny. Good sort of timeout break. But what I hear is that, oh my God, that's really expensive. We do need a Hollywood production or a Hollywood actor. In my last feature of the newsletter, B2B, that made me feel things, it was Salesforce with Matthew McConaughey. God knows how much he cost. He got an Oscar, right? So luckily you don't. You literally need anything that allows you to stop the scroll and grab somebody's attention with the right message. And I usually start with the right message, where instead of, you know, some invisible commodity brand, which to be honest, a lot of SaaS brands kind of are, I try to position the client as a must-have. I have a process for that. I can share it with you a little bit later, but let me just answer this question first. And the brand work that I produce does not rely on having a film crew. Let's put it that way. That would be absolutely crazy in this environment. I actually rely on words a lot. I writing punchy copy that provokes you to take note and that captures attention. Sometimes I have expanded into using video most recently, but it's stock video. We pay nothing for it, right? It's just hours of editing and putting it together. But all of that is absolutely worthless unless there's this idea, right? A way to communicate what you actually stand for and that you are the must-have. So the project in itself, it's not measured in months or even weeks. It's done within a few days or a week with iteration. Yeah, it stretches into maybe 2 or 3. So that's in terms of what you actually put out, right? Like what's the media, what's the creative? It can be done differently. I'll give you some examples that are like sort of punchy as well. And the second argument that people usually make is we need a huge awareness budget. Well, if you're going to go on national TV, although, you know, I'm not sure that's the right media for a B2B brand, or if you're going to go on a billboard outside my apartment, you're going to need a lot of money, right? And startups typically don't have that money. With LinkedIn, they literally give you an opportunity to run awareness ads. And I've spoken to a bunch of my clients, and in the first meeting, I asked them how their performance ads are performing, and they're not performing. Yes, it's a tongue twister. I should like patent this or something. And then I asked them, do you also run any awareness ads? And a lot of the time people aren't sure, or they don't because it doesn't show results. Whereas awareness ads are actually dirt cheap to run and are recommended by LinkedIn. LinkedIn literally says, guys, the reason your leads are so expensive is because you're making us, the algorithm, do the whole work, or finding you the person who wants your thing now. If you run awareness ads, pull out on those signals, retarget whoever visits your website or clicks on it, shows a limited, tiny amount of interest, everything will be a lot more effective. And so I Googled what proportion, I didn't Google, I asked ChatGPT, why am I lying? Asked ChatGPT what proportion of B2B marketers or B2B companies actually invest in awareness ads. And not that I trust the data by ChatGPT, but it hovered at around 16%. Recommendation on LinkedIn is that any company should be about 50-50 into awareness and performance. So this is a bit of awkward situation where we're literally, as marketers, not doing what we're supposed to do. Science tells us this, LinkedIn tells us that, but we're stubbornly shoving our money down the throats of a giant of LinkedIn whilst telling them that it's not working well enough. And I think this could be really exciting to ask you guys if you could guess how much it costs to run an awareness ad that gets seen by 1,000 people in your ideal customer profile on LinkedIn. If there's a media person here, do not. So 1,000 people on LinkedIn will see your ad. Let's get like five, 6, 7 answers maybe. Whatever number.
Please use the chat to provide your answers. I see already Lee says $5. Levon says $10. $250. That's a stretch.
This is interesting.
120. Cool. All right.
So 1,000 people in your target audience will see your ad. Just see. We're not optimizing for clicks or conversions. Let's do one more. Whoever, first thing that's in your head.
Oh, sorry. We see Boaja is saying 250, but I don't know which currency. Could be rupees.
Okay,
Boaja,
so we have
sorry, and just to clarify, Boaja, what's your currency? Oh, 250. Mistake. Okay.
Euro. Okay, so we have a split between 250 euro to 220 euros, right? Sometimes if I do this, people tell me like, well, probably like 500 or something, euro or USD. It's completely kind of nuts what people think it is. I think single digits or early double digits is more likely to be Meta, Facebook, Instagram, right? Because you don't have a sophisticated audience, you have a blanket audience, and they, to be honest, know way more about us than we do ourselves or than LinkedIn. But on LinkedIn, it's $35. You can get exposed to 1,000 people in your target audience for $35. If it's super senior audience, because I'm a bit of a pain, so I really tortured LinkedIn to tell me, let's say it's about, I don't know, 60, 70, maybe 80. And yes, you'll be exposed once. If you have terrible creative, which a lot of B2B brand campaigns, they don't really stand out. They're not saying anything that's particularly decisive or punchy, then that might achieve nothing. But if you have a provocative brand campaign that tells them why you are the solution, then even after seeing your ad once or twice, you've already created memories and preference. And as we know, sorry for the stats, it's going to get real nerdy out here. 81% of B2B buyers end up buying one of the first brands that came to mind. So it's very important to just be front of mind for whenever they're ready to transact. So that's my sort of quick overview on awareness ads, awareness ad budget. It's nowhere near as expensive as people think, because as far as I see, like around the average cost per lead in B2B, however we define lead, is about what, 300 euros / dollars these days. That's what people tend to keep sharing with me, and I've seen that myself. And for that amount of money, if we do some maths, it's 4,500 to 5,000 people that you could be in front of. This is, to me, that's a no-brainer, right? We're not actually talking about Matthew McConaughey's Oscar-winning budget superstar power. We're talking about good copy and 300 euros.
Yeah, so that brings me back to a comment that I saw a couple of days ago on LinkedIn, and somebody said, like, because I preach the same story as you, of course, brand is the number one thing that you have to invest in. And of course, everybody says super expensive, we're not going to do that. And then I asked them, like, what do you think? Why do you think it's so expensive? And they're like, well, yeah, it costs thousands to run these ads, right? So why do they think it costs thousands? Like, what makes it so expensive in their heads, in their minds?
Well, I think it's partially that we're used to honestly, the word advertising is from traditional advertising, right? And I early in my career, I worked at a bunch of, the kind of agencies that come to Cannes Lions and get all the awards for creativity, right? The budgets we dealt with were, the size of Procter and Gamble or Unilever or Coca-Cola or Philips. Obviously that anchors it in your heads that we're going to talk about millions, right? Ironically, the most creative work was done for free for smaller companies because they were ready to run it. They were ready to do whatever it takes to get noticed. So that's probably one of the reasons. And the second one, which honestly is quite sort of maybe unpleasant to discuss, but I think it's way more likely, is because if you run awareness ads with a terrible ad, nothing happens. So of course they think that they need a massive investment to move the needle. I'll give you an example. Like I could bet you those 300 damn euros that we spoke about, that if we got 10 B2B companies right now into the list, and I was to go on LinkedIn and look at their sponsored posts, although they changed how they call them now, I wouldn't see a brand ad that made me have any kind of emotion. I would see ads for webinars, which you can attend for free. Let's talk about that. Download my white paper. Here's our expert talking about this thing. But if I'm in the 95% of the market that's not interested in you or in your solution or even in your category, I'm not going to react to an invite to your webinar. You're like fast forwarding 3 steps, right? So you need something that touches them even when they're not interested. And those ads are very rarely written because people in tech are product marketers a lot of the time, or performance marketers. They don't have that skill set in-house. Their growth agency doesn't have that skill set. Believe me, I've been the head of marketing. I tried to hire one. No, you could go to those Cannes award-winning agencies, but they're going to cost you way too much, and they also don't really understand how digital marketing works or B2B tech. So there is a situation where we have this sort of vacuum in the industry where, even if we understand the 95-5 rule, even if we understand the 81%, even if I throw all the stats at you, and I have a lot, I always carry them with me.
And I have some too. I have some too, actually, because I'm just as nerdy as you. And I'm super happy that you answered that question with, the creative is not really good, right? So I have a stat to show you here. You probably, if you're nerdy as me, then you know Les Binet. And I looked into his report that, what was it? The short and the long of it. And he did, and the guy is like, the long and short of it, And the guy, he is like, what is he? He has background in physics, and he's just literally a scientist. So he did the study, and what turned out is that if you optimize your ads by geography, you can get like 4 times, or the profit multiplier is 4 times. If you do it by product, is a little bit more or a little bit less. Then by variant of your product is a little bit less. And then by media, so like what's the format or what's the outlet that you're putting this ad on, that also has a little bit of effect. And together, all these elements give you the multiplier of 12, while the creative has almost just as much power. And that is so strange that we just try to tweak the ads. Of course, these are like big campaigns and big products that we're talking about here, but still, startups should really take a lesson from this and really pay more attention to the creative, to what we're really saying to these people that we're trying to reach, and what we want them to remember, how we want them to feel about our brand, because these are the things that they're going to remember, right? Because they don't really remember reasonable, what you said, like in a reasonable way. They will remember how you made them feel through the words, through videos, through colors, whatever that is, right?
Oh, 100%. I know this study, and Les Binet is one of those. He actually works for one of those big award-winning ad agencies, which is where he writes all of his amazing labor of data analysis, right? So completely understand. And this study was then replicated for LinkedIn using the same sources, and it's Ehrenberg Bass Institute of Marketing Science that usually does it. And there was this chart. I don't have it. It was one of the charts I don't have right now, but it basically claimed that it was called CMOs scorecard for B2B. And you know how all of us are used to somehow talking about which media should we go in? Who do we target, right? Like what platform, what's the frequency, etc. What's the format, awareness versus conversion, etc. Actually, impact of creative is higher than any of those other conversations people spend their lives having whilst they're working in B2B. So the result is the same for B2B as well. We can't just disprove it and say, oh, that's if you sell, like, I don't know, whiskey or toothpaste, right? No, absolutely not. So completely agree with you. And actually, it's interesting because those are the questions that are popping in our chat as well, right? For example, Alan said, which platform offer the best reach for B2B awareness campaign, right? PPC advert budget. This is it. This is the conversation on media. That's the primary conversation in B2B. I made notes on this, so I'm gonna start answering them since we've so nicely managed to tie this together to these charts.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to go over these questions? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, let's just pick one that you want to start with, and let's go for it.
Let's go with Alan because my brain is there right now, and it's a very easy answer. If you're going to do a B2B awareness campaign, you want broad reach, but not like crazy broad, because there's still a finite number of companies that you're going to cover, or the right size, or maybe it's geography, etc. So you would say that it's most likely that B2B knows the best about, that LinkedIn knows the best about who your ICP is and how to target them. So either by choosing their internal options or uploading a list. However, a much easier way to do it is to, if you have a website that already has traffic, just use LinkedIn to retarget visitors to the website. That's not a bad sort of starting point, just to keep being front of mind of somebody who's already been on your webpage. It's a really, really good sort of intense signal, right? And then at the same time, a cheeky thing that I've done before in my role as head of marketing is we got leads on LinkedIn, or we got engagement on our engagement on our awareness campaign on LinkedIn, and then we retargeted the same people on other platforms because it's much cheaper to get reach on Meta, right? For example. So, but not everybody. The algorithm doesn't necessarily understand that this person is this person on Meta, but it does for some. And given it's so cheap, it was worth a risk. So that's a weird weird tip for you. Use LinkedIn because it knows the most, but then very quickly try to retarget in a smart way. We have seen budgets swallowed by Google PPC adverts. Yeah, because you're paying the algorithm to do the job that you're supposed to do. You want a lead, which is a bottom of the funnel activity. And so Google is charging you because you bypassed, awareness, interest, and desire, or whatever funnel model we use. They're kind of all the same with different words. So you're supposed to do the awareness, interest, and desire. And then you might not even have to spend on PPC adverts. I actually like to think, maybe somebody will throw an egg at me for this, but your cold outreach is performance marketing, right? You're trying to pick up the lowest hanging fruit, somebody who is already ready to buy or in the right sort of state of need. So you're already doing, and most of B2B companies are doing cold outreach. So you're already doing some level of bottom of the funnel. It's the top of the funnel that you're not doing. So Lee, I think the problem that you have is exactly what we're talking about now. And you're not alone. Everybody's doing it. Some veer more into mid-funnel with, here's a webinar, here's a 3-page report, la, la, la. But it's the awareness that's missing. So much, Justina, help me here.
Yeah, so I'll just start from the beginning because Duarte also asked a question a couple of minutes ago. Is it really only about the mix of copy and awareness ads? Does copy still hold such an impact in the era of GPT?
I adore this question. Because if you want copy just to get your job done, yeah, ChatGPT is great. But I see ChatGPT as a sort of it needs a hell of a lot of assistance to come in with something that's original. And so what ChatGPT usually outputs, and sometimes I demonstrate that to my clients, I ask it to write the campaign that I'm supposed to write. It's a bunch of buzzwords. If it has 10 words, 9 of them are buzzwords. The other one is at, and, or in, right? which is exact recipe to not stand out. And you and I both scroll past ads on LinkedIn or on any other social media unless they grab our attention and stop the scroll. So ChatGPT allows you to get your job done if you don't care about the impact of it. But if you actually want your creative to be remembered, and charts, stats, they tell us that you probably should, right? If you want to do it well, you actually have to do the complete opposite. You have to de-buzzword all of your communications. This is like borderline trolling device, but there is a thing called blah blah meter online, and if you put your copy into it, it will tell you how much of it is just blah blah. Really bad for political speeches, really bad for most B2B website, to be quite honest with you, because people don't react to just an array of words. You have to use human language and you have to use interesting language. I'll give you an example. I had an HR company, HR SaaS company as a client, and their line was something along the lines of, it honestly doesn't matter if I get it right. Research insights into employee engagement and motivation to optimize the efficiency of your business. You know, something like that. You know exactly what I mean, right? There's a headache and nobody would remember that, right? So when we looked at that, after a while, I realized, well, this is like an absolute mess. So firstly, we need to simplify it, but the line became, turn your workforce into a true force. Right? Because there's play on words between workforce and force, right? Which tells you about efficiency and impact without you sounding like, you know, the kind of asshole that treats their people badly and just squeezes the life out of them, right? And suddenly it's memorable. I haven't been on their website for about a year, but I still remember the line, right? That it's sitting there. And that's because I use alliteration. I often use rhyme. I often use play with words because, and I'll tell you why, not because I love it, because obviously I love it, right? Otherwise I wouldn't be in this profession, but because us humans think about like what we remember, right? We remember stuff that stand out. It's called the rattlesnake effect, right? If I am a cave woman and I'm walking around, I want to see the snake, right? So I scan everything for the weird behavior. It's not a stick, it's a snake, right? Because it keeps me alive, it keeps me safe. So our brain, the reptile brain, is preconditioned to react to the stuff that stands out, that's weird. And then it causes an emotion. An emotion can be obviously negative. I'm scared of the snake, that's terrifying. I will run away, but I'll still remember it. Or it can be empathy, it can be sarcasm, it could be admiration, it could be a whole range of emotions that actually make you remember this stuff, right? Because you don't remember what you had this breakfast, probably. I didn't even have breakfast, I had a coffee, but like, nobody remembers what they had for breakfast exactly because it's a mundane event. It's not special. Something has to be special for us to make it memorable. So you got to write something that is unexpected. And for me, I try zero buzzword, maximum human, playful wording.
So that brings me to a question of how exactly do you pick what you want to remember, what emotions do you want to evoke? And I think you're going to show that in one of the frameworks that you promised.
Yes, I promised some frameworks.
Okay, just hold that thought for a second because there's one more question that I would like to ask you, or Levon wants to answer before we jump in. So how do you test if you have a winning creative you can confidently invest in?
Okay.
I think it's connected, isn't it?
It's connected, right? I think when we think about creative, people think about the specific ads, right? But first you got to do the strategy. And I know people don't want to do strategy because we're burned by terrible consultancies who charge a lot of money and take 2 months. How do I know? I've worked in those too, right? I could tell you the answer on day 2, but I had to create a process to be charged, right? So don't want to do that. And I have a process that takes a 2-hour workshop. I do some prep before, and then I do a 2-hour workshop where I figure out, here's your positioning. Suddenly, you're not just another SaaS solution in HR, design, customer experience, whatever. Suddenly, you're the only right solution. So it's the must-have workshop. And I'll tell you what's in it now, because you can do some parts of it yourself. And there's no sort of secret sources in my brain. If you struggle, that's when you call me. And so if you nail the strategy, then you can look at different creative executions. So usually I don't just go, that's cool, here's your campaign. I go, that's cool, here's 3 directions that explore this statement that we agreed on in 3 different ways. And some are edgier, some are more like, well, this is a bit more about the product. So they really stretch it in different directions. And then I have a scorecard. That's right. You gotta formalize the creative part. We look at certain aspects of each campaign to decide which one works the best. We look at to what extent it's relevant to your ICP for sure, but to what extent will it make you famous? To what extent it will be able to live across every other touch point, because it's not just an ad, it has to be part of your website, any of the cold email, any of the gifts you send to your prospects or current clients, whatever it may be. And it has to be able to stretch. So we tested for a bunch of these and then we decide on one. And then you will still have many executions. So I just finished a project where we had 6 executions in video, and I'll show you ones in print, but video works better for awareness building because then you get more emotions. You're like, what the hell is that? Awareness, curiosity, awareness, interest. You go through all of that in 15 seconds. And we upload a bunch of them and we see what performs, even though we put it as awareness ads. So we are optimizing for broad reach. Some of them will still generate click-throughs, right? Just organically, some of them will. And we will be able to see which ones generate the most. Some of them will generate engagement, some of them won't. So then over time, you can switch off a few and just leave the creatives that work. So we don't jump from, we need a campaign, here's a bunch of random ones. We go for a quick strategic positioning process, explore 3, choose one with a scorecard, and then go all out on a few executions. So then any iterations are fine-tuning rather than going, reinvent the wheel, it's all not working. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, makes total sense. And Levon loves it. So thank you so much for explaining that. And now we can jump into your framework.
All right, I'm gonna just drink a glass of water.
Oh yeah, please do.
So Justy is all about Figma. I'm all about Miro. Sorry, I'm not switching. I like my scrappy pieces of paper. So I am going to share this screen. Tell me when you see it. Do you see it?
Yes.
Awesome. I kind of see you as well. I'm going to show you this process that I go through. And before you're like, wow, Diana, you invented something new. And sorry, I'm going to move you guys here so you can see me in the camera. I'm going to tell you why I use this process, because it's not like completely revolutionary, right? I've told you about these pain points that people come to me with, right? It's like never-ending webinars, lukewarm leads, and squeezed budgets. And that's because everybody's fighting for 5% of the market. And obviously the richest, the biggest companies are going to win it, right? And so I remind them that 81% actually buy the first brand that comes to mind. And this is where you can win, because these big guys do not have enough guts to write creative content, to write provocative content. I've worked in those companies. I've had to censor myself a lot of the time, or at least to spend months getting approvals for something that's moderately edgy, or at least write a campaign that's, 10 out of 10, but had to tone it down to 4 to be able to run it. But smaller companies, including startups and scale-ups, they can, and that's the only way to win. And that's called challenger brand thinking. Some of you might have seen this book before. It's not new. It's a few decades old, actually. It's called Eating the Big Fish. And challenger brand is a very common business term, but this book probably is the best at explaining it for marketing. And what it says is you need to play by different rules in order to stand out. You need to take what's happening in the market right now and completely undermine it. And it's an old book, but I'll let you in on a secret. These are like some of the best ad agencies in the world. I've worked at them. TBWA, Havas, and DDB. They all get those big fancy titles. They actually all use the same playbook. They just put their own TM name on it. Disruption, something else, right? Create your own category. It's all the same. And obviously these processes take months and take a lot of money. But having sat in all of them for years of my career, I've narrowed them down and made them quite accessible for you. So you can screen grab or you can write it down, but this is layout of my invisible to must-have workshop. It's 3 steps, and I'll show you examples from my past customers, as well as some of the campaigns that we made at the end of it, which is the second step. So first we do the strategy. First step, not groundbreaking. Research the industry, right? What are your competitors claiming? How the industry media covers it? And what really bugs the audience, right? And the first two, you'll be like, yeah, I kind of know like what my competitors are claiming. The media, how media covers it is much more interesting. But the real kicker is, what does your audience think about all of it? And I could interview like 30 people and tell you what your audience think about the state of the industry. But actually, I don't need to do that because they tell you that themselves. Even in B2B, people often talk about their work on social media. There's some anonymous social media as well. There's some Instagram accounts that are dedicated to specific job roles, being sales, marketing, advertising, HR. I've shared some of them on my LinkedIn before. But also my little hack is put the job title of your ICP into search bar in Google and click images. Oh, put the word meme after it and click images, because it will tell you what the pain points are. Because as humans, when things are really bad, we need to like let off steam, so we joke about it. So when something hurts, people make memes. I'll give you an example. Oh, something fell off here. Had a client in customer experience analytics, so software company. And yeah, it took us a long time to realize that, no, it should have taken us a long time to realize that the funny thing is that sometimes customer experience satisfaction goes up, but if you're a customer experience manager and you have no clue why it went up, you're still terrible at your job, right? Because you can't connect the dots and tell the story. I just explained that to you in like a minute. Somebody tried to explain that to me in an hour, and that's somebody working in the company. But this meme told that to me in seconds, right? And it's from last year, the Barbenheimer sort of event. This is for the HR company I think I mentioned previously. We talked with the CMO and she said, I don't understand how is there even another solution in the world for an HR software, right? And I was like, well, if there wasn't, then we would have excellent corporate culture all over the world and people would be happy, clappy, and so would employers, right? And that's just not how it is in the era of quiet quitting and we are family. Oh, sorry, you're fired the day after, right? In the era where people work from home and have multiple remote jobs. And so the untold truth of the market there, of the industry, was that corporate culture these days is just a bunch of people lying to each other, right? And I was able to, yes, find a Wall Street Journal study about it, but also memes told me the truth pretty instantly, right? Did that recently for a team that builds AI software products. And you know, I don't understand how the stuff is on this meme. Like, I'm not that technical. Well, though after working with them, I do. But I was able to say, is this the truth? AI projects often fail right from the start. And they were like, yeah, because nobody who comes to us actually knows what they're building and why, and there's no real business case. Fantastic. That's a great starting point, right? So step one is, yes, the news, look at your critically evaluate how they talk about themselves, not their truth, but how they talk about themselves on their website, on their Glassdoor, on their LinkedIn, and then look at memes because they will tell you what freaking sucks. You want to find out what sucks, and I'll tell you why. Because step two is identifying industry norms. So this is where it gets interesting. You got to zoom out and you got to be like, what are the rules that the market actually plays by? What is taken for granted? What are the assumptions? And I know those are big words that ad agencies use to make a lot of money off strategy projects, because I've done that. But here's an example, right? You can hopefully follow this with me. So I had a client who had an amazing tech product that allows you to do RevOps with confidence, like plug in a bunch of data points. It gives you projections for your business so you can adjust in real time. So it's not a static business plan. It's something that startups can actually use. And we talked to him about his audience, which is mostly founders. And they're really good usually at building a product, right? They will tell you that they're technical, they fell in love with this problem, they built this product, but they're actually usually fairly terrible at building a business. And that's very, very different from building a product. I think a lot of people in this chat, even though I don't see your faces, I think you're gonna agree, right? And then the thing with founders is that there's still a bunch of them, even in this terrible time for funding, that are powered by passion, hope, and hustle, and just think that their thing is supposed to be in the world and it will work out. And there's very few, mostly second, third time founders that are powered by foresight and pre-test their assumptions and know where the money is going to come from and know how to adjust their plans, their strategy, or even short-term tactics in order to make sure that company stays afloat. And so whilst I could have focused on product marketing stuff, what are the features of his product? How does he calculate this? What kind of advice he gives? I realized that once we speak about the founder problems, we realize that his solution is the only one that allows the founder to see the full picture. It turns these people, or these people, or these people into those that are actually credible and can keep their startup afloat in the long term. And that's a very different way on which to position your brand, because none of his competitors are promising that. They're very much rooted in the features. Let's go back to these AI guys who taught me everything about RAG and other abbreviations. In AI, everybody's talking AI, so everybody will relate to that. A bunch of their competitors talk about realizing your vision and unleashing the potential of AI and all of these really fluffy big things that are super promising, but there's nothing concrete about it, right? And someday something wonderful will happen and will change the world. These guys came to me and they do stuff today. They were like, well, we can do a 2 weeks proof of concept and then everything is dandy and then we roll out the full solution. Which is a very different way of talking. So your attention is someday to today, and the other attention is doing stuff to getting stuff done. So the doing stuff people are the ones who write a 30-page report about the future of AI or invite you to their webinar about challenges and solutions. But people who get stuff done are the ones who actually put projects into production, right? So that's what allowed us to figure out these are the two tensions. And if we are the only ones who solves these both tensions, then we are the no-brainer. We're the must-have. We're the winner. And the line was get AI done already, which is really intense and very provocative. The execution is a little bit more empathetic to the leader commissioning this sort of work. But we are able to figure out what's the quadrant we play with. So in creative, we will test different versions of articulating this, different intensities, different provocations, right? But we know that fundamentally their positioning should be around this because that's the empty space that they can credibly occupy. And in the interest of time, I'll just show you where it ended up being. I wrote a bunch of territories of that, and one that we ended up going with, here's sort of a framework that I use. I name them, there's an audience inside, brand opportunity, some really ugly mock-ups, right? And then some proof points, tone of voice, inspiration, why it works, what are the watch outs, touch point ideas. But I ended up a campaign that sort of tries to empathize with the customers, such as CTO, CIO, head of data, who are usually asked to do something with AI by their boss, and they're terrified of getting it wrong because it's a really terrible brief if you think about it. High impact, terrible guidance, right? And so what we do is not saying we are the people who solve it for you. We say we understand exactly where it hurts and why. And yes, we will solve it for you without all the bullshit that you're usually dealing with, you know, as we have identified in this quadrant. So suddenly you're able to go into interesting campaigns about that feeling when, you know, benefit happens and the feeling of relief, the feeling of joy, etc. They're video ads, but I've left some here, which are sort of banner ads. And the most important thing that we're trying to do is take them out of the office, right? Because you don't want to click on an ad that has a dude holding a laptop again. That's banned. Nobody pays attention to that. But if you have an unusual location to it, right? And you are able to communicate the feeling in that environment, it's much more likely to stop the scroll. So here's one of them. Yes, we have a dude in the office after all. That feeling when your AI consultancy show you their actual models, not just pretty slides, the LLM models. We even went to this environment. We'll see how that performs. But the feeling of peace when you kick out the pretend AI experts and finally, you know, get stuff done and build things. So we have 6 of them in video, and these are just some screen grabs that I made for this, you know, presentation, because video hooks you in more. But we will see that some of them might flop, but some of them might perform a lot better. But that means the strategy still stays the same, which means that we don't have to reinvent the wheel if some of them perform better than or worse than the others. You know what I mean? I have more examples for you in terms of this positioning and how it leads into creative, etc. This one is from a payments space, but more keen on the questions.
Yeah, so I have one question. This
Mhm.
this all sounds like music to my ears, and it looks awesome. And now I'm wondering, so how obviously your job ends, or I'm not sure if it's obviously, but your job ends at, okay, we have this creative and we have the campaign, now we're going to run it. Like, so where's the end point to
Well,
this?
it's
And how,
very
sorry,
good
go on.
question. Very good question. I very consciously decided to break it down into chunks because I don't think in this economy people are throwing money around, right? Yeah, I have sold a project a year ago that was very, very nicely priced by the metrics of this year. But I also really feel passionate that people should do it properly so that we avoid burnt out marketers where nothing is working. So I do the first strategic bit, this thing here, together with people with some homework beforehand. And I do that at the loss, actually, at $500 right now, because I want people to join this pipeline. And did I say 5,000? I meant 500, 5 zeros. Because I want people to come on this journey with me, and I want them to be to understand where the opportunity is, because then they really like, that's the challenger brand thinking, right? And then I come in and I explore these 3 territories, and we have a scorecard, so we decide what works. That's another workshop. And then I actually build it, and then I launch it. Not only do I like send them a file with all the stuff, I actually put it into their LinkedIn. And because some of my clients aren't really sure how to run necessarily awareness campaigns, I also help them with their list. I might regret saying that because sometimes they're absolutely horrific. And upload them on LinkedIn with the right setting and send them a Loom video of what the hell I clicked so that it's well targeted without problems. And that's sort of the minimum viable output. What happens later is, can you rewrite our website? Because now we have this positioning and this campaign. And so I'm rewriting a website now for somebody. But that was kind of my way in, is through the strategy, because suddenly they realize their website should actually look completely different in order to be truthful to all of this entire exercise. Sometimes it goes into, okay, well, we're still going to do cold outreach. Okay, be my guest. Can we like be good about it and interesting about it and use some of this to power our cold outreach? For sure. Bigger companies really struggle with, well, we have demand generation efforts, we have content efforts, and then we have the performance side efforts. How the hell do we tie it together? And that's something that needs to be more hands-on. So typically I extend my project, but I think a better setup would be to come in a sort of fractional role, helping to tie it together and realize what parts can simply stay as they are, because a lot of product marketing can stay as it is with just some adjustments maybe to the writing, versus maybe some of the CRM activity can be adjusted. But the biggest bulk, which I think is needed, and I've had coaching clients for that specifically, so it's sort of kind of behind the curtains, is how the hell do you explain brand to the CEO and to the CFO, right? And they come with me with, I'm a brand director, I don't know. So I don't put it out there as an offering, because then they'll know that they don't know. Right? But that's exactly why I've been using the word coach in my profile, because if you're a coach, you can ask me anything, right? Ask me the most stupid questions. That's the whole point. And how do I know? I've been in this position. I was the head of marketing, and I've had to draw all kinds of funnels for the CFO fighting for the budget. It was extremely painful. So now I've had my science, I've had my case studies, I've had my examples of what to track. I've had examples of the studies that you can do in order to show uplift that's driven specifically by brand activity, how to measure branded search, and all of this that I can sort of come in and be like, here's how you make that argument, right? Right now it's coming in as a sort of coaching offering, but I think it should actually latch onto this project. But I'm very keen on doing it in this order, because often people come and say, how do I prove impact of the brand? And the amount of time we spend discussing that, we could have written a campaign. So I'm very passionate about doing the strategy and doing the campaign first, because otherwise you're just talking hypotheticals. And once you have a campaign, you will feel that it should work, and you will have buy-in internally. It's very hard to get buy-in from, well, this company did that, and this Les Binet says this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so relatable. I mean, I also get a lot, like I'm noticing now that you said that, I get a lot of like CMOs, head of growth, VP of marketing at startups and scale-ups, and they're like, I want this, I want you, what you're doing. I would love to hire you, but I don't know how to explain that to the higher ups. So what usually happens that like I have to literally do enablement for them. Like I need to enable them to sell this internally. And I think this is like a big thing, you know, and we should do something about it. Like we don't want to offer this, or we don't want to be open about this, but it is a burning problem. So I think there should be something to it. There are a couple of questions in the chat. Bourget asks, were the video ads published as awareness campaign on LinkedIn? That was about these
the AI guys, right? Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then the static ones are uploaded as well, but I expect the video ads to perform better. To be honest, it's kind of clear which ones are a bit, the tone of the public decides the tone of voice, because and I'll tell you, the tone of voice was absurd, and that was agreed on with the client. So absurdity did indeed follow, and some of them were maybe too absurd. So we know straight away that this guy performs well. This girl dancing and throwing papers in the air, probably not, you know. So it's trackable, right? LinkedIn, even though it's an awareness ad, LinkedIn still tells you who clicks on what. And yeah, if you want to really connect the dots, there's a UTM tracker code, so you're going to be able to see who converts, but it's going to take a longer period of time, right? But I can give you like an interesting observation that I've had. Well, it's not observations, an anecdote from one of the clients I worked with, and this was earlier in the summer. Mostly cold outreach got banned in the end, but you know, that was what they were doing. And here's the difference: you do cold outreach and you don't have brand awareness of any kind, you're a spammer and you're annoying and you go into the bin. If you do awareness campaigns that have some sense of personality and tone of voice, then you get a cold outreach and you're like, these guys, I've seen them before, so they're a real company. They're not some scammer from God knows where. You know, they're registered, because only registered companies can run ads on LinkedIn. Okay, and also they're human, because they were amusing, funny, generated some sort of emotion, right? Or sarcastic. Sarcasm is a tone of voice that a lot of B2B likes, in my experience. And so the response that you get, even if they don't need a solution, they're open to a call because they know that this is a pleasant company to deal with, right? Yeah, saw your ads, it's funny, show me what you got. Wouldn't mind a chat, because they're interested in learning, because they know that on the other end is somebody real, right? So I think that anecdotal sort of experience actually says a lot, because that's how we as humans interact with each other as well. Here's my best friend, and she's absolutely bonkers, but I love her. Great, right? You know exactly what to expect, and you know that this is a person that was recommended to me. So it works a little bit like that.
Yeah, exactly. And this is amazing how somehow, because of this sort of like wall of technology between us and our potential customers, we as marketers, we forget about this human behind, right? And that makes us do stupid things. Like we don't think about like what we're doing, what effect does it have on this other person? When something doesn't work, we don't ask ourselves what is happening on the other side. We ask ourselves, what can we tweak in the numbers in Google dashboard, right? And this is so stupid. Like, oh my gosh, I can talk about this for hours. Sorry.
I agree. It's ridiculous, but I also empathize with that. Again, I've been head of marketing with not great results a few quarters, and then I tweak the numbers or pull on my team. I was like, did you that epic thing you did? Because we don't have the numbers, right? And my report for the quarter better be epic. So I know the need of, you got to keep your job, so you massage the numbers, right? I like a good stat, So we do it because we have to, but you can never forget that, if you're just going to focus on analytics, you're going to evaluate whatever you've put in, and most of the stuff that people put in to analyze, to test, is sort of subpar, right? We can do better. It's not that hard to be better. It's just that the skill set to do better is not necessarily in-house, which I completely relate to.
Yeah, I totally can relate to it as well. We have 2 more minutes left. I hope you can stay for a few more minutes because there are a couple of interesting questions. The most interesting one for you is: are your workshops $500 each for 4 stages?
4 stages, that's a lot of stages. This is one workshop, right? We meet for 2 hours and I do a few hours prep beforehand, and that's 500 because it's my loss leader, you know. But I just want people to get into the funnel. The next step is to figure out what is the potential 3 territories, and then we discuss and iterate and vote on that. And the next one is creation of a campaign. Usually I package it together with writing a landing page. If I do that, it's like a 5K, but the next step after this would be 1K to see the 3 campaign directions. You know, that's like an easy next step. You think this is a juicy territory? Let me explore it in 3 ways. And then, to be honest, usually when people have seen 3, they fall in love with one of them and it makes sense. Then it takes me another, I don't know, 1 or 2K to produce them. Right. Then there's more to upload them. But a lot of the time, you know, these days you got to be mindful. People say, well, I have a designer and I have a media person. Can you just sit down with a media person for an hour? Yes, that changes the cost, obviously. If I don't have to do it myself, but I have to take a meeting with somebody and just, you know, offboard that, then that's absolutely fine. So I have some flexibility in the second step packaging, depending on who I'm working with and whether they have a skill in-house or maybe they already have a list and it's all dandy. But the second step would be a $1,000 sort of event where I look at 3 territories, which is quite a lot of work, to be honest.
Yeah, that's not an easy job for sure. All right, another question from Ellen is: how do you validate the benefits / market entry points for challenger brands? Internal workshops inevitably tap into internal bias, prejudice about their product or service.
I like this question. I'm going to start from the end because look, we're doing internal workshops, but I'm not asking them for their perspective. If we're being honest about it, I am trying to observe what absolutely sucks in the market. And a lot of the time they're part of the suckery. Wow, this is a great quote. Right? So this is my way to shine a light and put the mirror in front of them saying, yeah, everybody's doing it. That's probably not a good thing, right? So I completely understand the internal bias, and I'm a strong believer that we need committees and internal stakeholder management, but no committee has ever written a great ad, right? Nothing like that. It gets written by committee. And that's why I'd rather write 3 interesting ads and let them choose one, because they're never going to create them themselves. So that's the answer to your second question. The first one is: how do you validate the benefits, market entry points for challenging brands? I'm gonna tell you an example of somebody, a prospect that I'm working with right now, which maybe answers your question in a sideways way, because I don't want to be theoretical, but I want to give an example. They work with an UX. And they have 2 target audiences, and they actually don't know which one will buy more, because they've recently expanded, so they don't know if the old audience is the same in the new geographical market. And so when I was presenting my solution to him, I said, okay, well, we can do 2 workshops and do the work twice with different target audience. That's one way, and that's like double the work. Or we do a broad reach campaign that covers both of the audiences, and the message has to be so high up, and if you see the full picture or get it done already, are sort of high up messages that we see who lands, right? So we go broad at the top, and then we'll see who responds to that message that should be working for the 2. And honestly, in terms of efficiency, sometimes it's less doing and more testing, right? So sorry, less thinking and more testing. Because yes, it makes no sense to do the process twice. It makes a lot of sense to run this campaign broadly for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then decide who your target audience actually is. You'll learn a lot more from those calls and communications as well. You'll get live feedback.
Yeah, that's a very good point indeed. Especially if you're just at the beginning, you're a startup and you have like a lot of things to figure out. You have to start somewhere. You have to start like on educated guesses and then just, test, put it out into the world and see what happens.
And don't forget the budgets, right? Like the 300 euros that could buy you one lead of variable quality can get you in front of 4,000 or 5,000 people, right? You can't afford that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's not big amounts. And to answer your second question, or the second part of the question, internal workshops inevitably tap into internal bias. I actually have a solution to that, and I do something. I do something that I call empathy probing exercise, and that is a role-playing exercise with the founder, with the any customer-facing team, so sales, customer support, and the marketers as well. And then I force them to, like, I first let them fill in a form where they, they give a name of that ideal client that they just dream of, working with, and they have to become that client. So they are like, I don't know, Tom or Diana, right? They're Diana, and I have to remind them constantly, like, because what you said is very true, that they are just always kind of like drifting away. They're always like bouncing back to the product, to them, to being like egocentric. Like, no.
Yeah.
Forget, you're not you. You are Diana today. You are not allowed to talk about your product. You don't know about your product at all. So you constantly have to remind them of this. And I gotta tell you, after like 15 minutes of this, they have so many light bulb moments. I'm like, oh my gosh, this really works. So, but the key here is to ask the right questions, right? So it really being intentional about, like, how do you ask the questions so that you don't bias them and you don't try to get them back to their product and biases. So yeah, that's that would
really
be
good. I love it. I love that you actually make them role play, because I've done the opposite before, where I was like, the pain points we're doing, writing the framework, and I ended up having like a red pen lifting. We're like, nah, that's your opinion. That's not their opinion. And I'm like, wow, I'm such an asshole right now. But this is way better.
Yeah, it works. So you can steal it, definitely. All right, it's already 5:05 right here in the Netherlands, so I'll let you go. But thank you so much, Diana, for sharing all of this with us. Can we have this Miro board? Is that okay?
I can probably copy it over to a new one.
Or if you have any resources on your LinkedIn that you could direct us to download.
Yes, shall I send it to you, Justy, and then we distribute? Yeah. I'll let you know. And everybody, you can follow me on LinkedIn, subscribe to the newsletter. It's monthly. The recent one was about a week or two ago. So I'm preparing a new one, and DM me. I reply about the process, about some of the questions. I'm really grateful for the ones that were being asked. I've made notes for myself, and I can write a post about it or something useful,
Really good stuff. Thanks for asking all the good questions. Thank you for answering all the good questions. And yeah, let's do this again sometime.
Awesome to meet you all. I wish I could see your faces. Well, I'm glad for the one face that I could see the whole time. Thank you, Lee.
Yes, Lee. Hi. Thanks for being here. Awesome.
Hey, hi.
Bye.
Hi. Anybody else want to come out? No, they're leaving instead.
Oh, there you go. Ellen's here. Nice. Awesome.
Hi, Ellen. Super nice to meet you. Please, let's connect on LinkedIn. I would love to catch up one day. Just DM me. Awesome. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. Bye.